What'd he say his name was?
Gebatron.
Hello everyone, I am Gebatron. This video is about some fixes and changes I think could really improve Hell Let Loose. But before we get after it, I want to do a giveaway. I have 4 Oakleaf DLC keys for Steam, and all you have to do to enter is leave a comment and end it with the word fix. For example, on the screen now, I like your proposals. Fix. But of course you don't have to agree with my proposals to enter. Also, this giveaway has nothing to do with YouTube or its affiliates. This is between you, me, and Team 17 as they provided the keys. Winners will be chosen at random, and we'll talk more about how to collect them at the end of the video. Every so often I like to make these types of videos. In the past I've covered how I think nodes and resources could be improved, how the flamethrower could be improved, some other various changes I want and don't want. I've put all these in a playlist if you're interested. My last video was on how I think we should introduce mortars and SPGs to Hell Let Loose and how I think they should work. Now this video will include other types of changes ranging from mechanics to quality of life stuff. And you may be asking, why am I putting out 2 videos like this back to back? Well, right now, Team 17 and whatever studios they're working with are compiling feedback and ideas for their 2025 roadmap. Not 2024 anymore. I think this year isn't going to see anything too major in terms of updates, but we have been told there are going to be some changes happening and some reinvestment in Hell Let Loose in the near future. They've recently asked us war correspondents, official Hell Let Loose partners, as well as other corners of the community for what we think are important things to focus on and what we think our specific communities are looking for. I know that confidence in Team 17 is low right now, but even if all this never comes to pass, no one will be able to say we didn't try, and that's why it's important for you to give your feedback and ideas down in the comments. I will be sending this video directly to the powers that be, so let's not squander what opportunity we may have to influence the future of Hell Let Loose. Okay, now with all that said, I've made a very similar video to this one in the past. I still stand by everything in that video, but this is its own video and I won't be repeating anything I listed in that one except one thing. One thing that it just blows my mind hasn't been fixed yet. So here I am about to enter my AT gun. Now I'm doing AT gun things and it's time to exit. Oh, what the hell? Where am I? Where'd my gun go? Why the fuck am I exiting the AT gun in front of my armored shield? Why would we exit the gun in front of the part we purposely put between us and the enemy specifically to keep us safe from small arms fire? Just terrible design. It's less consequential, but we exit artillery the same way, and it just doesn't make sense at best, and sends players to the killed in action screen at worst. So that's number 1. Fix how we exit AT guns and arty. We need to exit behind the armor shields, and bonus points if they make it so, you know, like if we enter crouched or prone, we also exit that way. Number 2, return our garrison counter. For those of you who may not be aware, there was a time in Hell Let Loose when you'd be able to see how many garrisons were currently built out of your max build limit of 8. This was nice to know without having to sit and physically count them on the map, especially as commander. Some people may think this is more hardcore than having that info displayed for you, but there are better ways to make the game more hardcore other than having me count garrisons every few minutes. Bring back the garrison count. 3. Now I already said in this video that I think we should be awarded more XP for things like destroying enemy nodes and garrisons, and there's other XP related changes there too, so make sure to watch that. But something I did not mention in that video is role/loadout specific XP. Now this is something I don't think we'll ever get, but I think it would be helpful with keeping players more focused on what their specialties are. So what do I mean by role/loadout specific XP? Okay, there are 3 separate roles, each with loadouts including satchel charges. First, our engineer role with the sapper loadout. While in real life sappers have many duties, they specialize in breaching fortifications and conducting demolitions. I think players with this loadout should receive XP bonuses while using their satchels in destroying enemy defenses or say eliminating enemies inside a structure, while they should receive reduced XP, say if they were to destroy a tank. In contrast, the anti-tank role with its ambusher loadout would receive a XP bonus for destroying enemy armor with their satchel, and less XP when taking out structures or infantry. Then there is yet a third role with the satchel. The assault role has a loadout titled Raider. This implies a soldier that is attacking the enemy in their own territory or disrupting enemy logistics. So I think they should receive XP bonuses when using their satchels to destroy things like garrisons, nodes, enemy light vehicles like trucks, supplies, and maybe even enemy infantry. You could take these XP bonuses, further by doing things like extra XP for grenade kills on loadouts that have more than the standard 2 grenades, or kills under 50 meters for loadouts with SMGs, or over 100 meters for rifle kills. Maybe give the riflemen extra XP for driving trucks or for loading AT guns or whatever. Like I said, I don't see this happening, but it is something I would like. 4. Since we are talking about satchels, I don't think satchels should one-shot heavy tanks. Now, before you get pissy, let me build my case. First off, that's not what satchels are really designed to do. There's a reason why anti-tank weapons are designed the way they are. There are many more types of these weapons now than back during World War II, but just breaking it down to the 2 most common of that time. You'd have just projectiles and then shape charges. But even still, both those use more or less the same principle of focusing an extremely large amount of energy on a very small area. The problem with the satchel in regard to destroying armor is that there is nothing to focus the energy into a small area. A large portion of energy from the blast is allowed to dissipate into the air. Here we read, though unsophisticated, the satchel charge was an effective anti-tank weapon during World War II. The blast could sever the tracks of a tank, damage internal components, or injure the crew. Now, keep in mind that an effective anti-tank weapon in the real world is different than what we would call an effective anti-tank weapon in a game like Hell Let Loose, especially because there are very few components modeled on the armor in Hell Let Loose. There is no damage modeled to things like vision blocks, periscopes, external MG barrels, no crew to injure or cause temporary hearing loss to. Hell, even the tracks and turret still function if quote-unquote destroyed. Here is another excerpt. When used as an anti-tank weapon, charges were sufficient to severely damage the tracks. 4 kilogram charges were enough to destroy medium tanks. Now in Hell Let Loose, the German satchel is only 3 kilograms, and I'm just assuming the other factions are comparable. This would mean that, according to what we've just read, that the in-game satchel isn't even large enough to destroy medium tanks. But I'm sure there are plenty of you who remain unconvinced by Wikipedia alone. This is Panzers on the Eastern Front by General Erhard Raus. Early in the book, he talks about the beginning of Operation Barbarossa, where at one point they encounter a Soviet KV-1 tank that is blocking a road. To make a long story short, the German AT guns were ineffective, and the KV-1 destroyed a German Flak 88 gun before it had a chance to fire. The decision was made to wait until dark and have engineers place demolition charges on the tank. What we're focused in on here is an extract from a report about how that turned out. You can pause to read it if you like, but the highlights are that the engineers placed a charge which was twice as strong as regulation to the tank track, and upon examination after detonation, hardly half of the width of the track had been destroyed. The engineer later attached another charge to the gun barrel, which only caused slight damage. So there's my case with an actual first-hand account of just how ineffective satchel charges can be on armored vehicles. I don't think the satchels in Hell Let Loose should one-shot heavy tanks. I think this would not only make heavy tanks more feared, but also encourage more coordination and communication when they are encountered. If you are interested in reading Panzers on the Eastern Front for yourself, feel free to check out the affiliate link in the description to purchase it. Thanks in advance. 5. Let's stick to tanks. More camo and paint variety. Ideally, I'd like it so either the commander or the tank commander can pick this before leaving the HQ, but even if we just got more variety based on the maps, or if it was random between 3 or so different map appropriate patterns or something like that, I think the community would really appreciate it, and I know I would too. Maybe even some variety in specific tank markings would be nice, so we don't have the same exact numbers and stuff on like 2 Tiger tanks sitting right next to each other. 6. Flesh out both the Soviets and the British. I feel like both Black Matter and Team 17 let us down a little here, as both introduced new factions and then returned back to late war Western Front maps. I think we need at least one more Soviet and British map before we get any more late war Western Front maps focusing, you know, on the Germans and US. Well, I'm pretty sure the next map is going to be a US Western Front map too. But after that, I'd really like to see a return to these forgotten factions. I think Tobruk would be an interesting British map where we could continue the more restricted equipment situation like is the case on El Alamein. I guess I'd like one more desert map, but there are plenty to choose from. Maybe we could also get some more earlier war vehicles like the Panzer III and British Crusaders or whatever. And then the same with the Eastern Front. I mean, we barely scratched the surface there. I mean, not only is there 4 years of battles to choose from, but when Stalingrad was released, Black Matter told us we were going to get another Stalingrad map in a different area of the city. So yeah, let's just get another map or two of these factions so they can show up a little more in rotations. 7. Let's move on to a quality of life change. Update 15.2 introduced the ability to filter our server list, an absolute excellent improvement that helped make this list one item shorter, but I have one more server list request. Let me set it so I can go to my favorites first instead of having to go to all servers, wait for it to load, then click on favorites and wait for it to load again. Or let us set it to friends or history or whatever we prefer. I just find it annoying that I have to go through the same routine every time I play, and maybe find a way to make these server lists load faster. 8. Career stats. Now there is a way for people who have the game via Steam to check some of their stats, even though it doesn't seem to be 100% accurate. But I don't like this as it forces you through a couple hoops in order to check. Not to mention that only Steam users can check it. So what I would like is an in-game career stat tracker that is private. Something similar to what games like World of Tanks has. Bonus points if I can set different date ranges to help in tracking improvements, or if we can see how we perform in different vehicles or on different maps. 9. Let's do a few weapon-related ones now. I'd like damage to be based on caliber class rather than weapon class. Now, what do I mean by caliber class? I mean we'd have rifle caliber weapons, intermediate caliber weapons, and pistol caliber weapons. For example, right now we have the M1903 Springfield sniper rifle, M1 Garand, the BAR, and Browning M1919. They all fire a 30-06 caliber round, but they all have different damage values at different distances because the game currently considers them all different weapon classes. I find this unnecessary as each weapon already has its own strengths and weaknesses inherent in their design. The former grants you more precision over distance, with the latter, allows for more volume of fire. Same goes for the other factions, the Kar 98K Sniper, Standard 98K, G43, FG42, and both German MGs, they all fire the same caliber rounds, so I don't know why we need different damage stats for them. Like I said, the benefit of the sniper scope is precision, and the benefit of the MG is volume. After all, shouldn't the BAR and the STG-44 perform differently? Right now, the recoil on the STG-44 is exaggerated, specifically so it doesn't outperform the BAR, because they are in the same weapon class, even though they use very different caliber rounds. Then to tack on top of this, the different MGs even perform differently between the different factions. So let's just make all rifle caliber weapons perform the same, all intermediate caliber weapons perform the same, and all pistol caliber weapons perform the same. No more easy mode for snipers and no more artificial disadvantages for MGs and the BAR. But right now I'm sure someone is furiously typing in the comments that this would make MGs OP, especially the MG42. So number 10, let's fix MGs, especially the MG42. Right now, the German MG role has two loadouts, standard issue with the MG34 and veteran with the MG42. You'll notice both MGs have this drum here. This drum is not a magazine. It's called a Gurttrommel or belt drum and is capable of holding one belt segment of 50 rounds in real life. However, in the game, the MG34 holds 100 rounds, while the MG42 magically holds 250 rounds. And yes, I did count them off individually. Both ammo counts are artificially inflated. Why? Well, early in the game's development, like early access and earlier, the Germans and US were the only two factions in the game. The MG42 was the only MG available for the Germans, as the MG34 was introduced much later. The US got the M1919 Browning, which doesn't have any drum attachments like this, at least not that I'm aware of, and either way it wasn't modeled in-game. This meant that the US had a 250 round belt-fed MG as standard issue. I believe giving the MG42 250 rounds in a 50 round container was done simply to help balance it with the Browning. But things have changed since then. We now have both the British and Soviet factions, which MGs are severely outclassed by the MG42 even without the inflated ammo count. This also makes the MG34 absolutely irrelevant once the MG42 is unlocked, as it has over twice the ammo. I mean, it's not like the devs, gave the Soviet DP-27 100 magical rounds in a 47 round Pan magazine for the sake of balance. They kept that historically accurate. So here's what I propose. Give both current German MG loadouts 50 rounds each, as is historically accurate. This immediately makes the MG34 a viable option for players that will be concerned about how fast the MG42 could burn through its 50 rounds. Keep the bipod set up fast and continue to allow these two MG loadouts to fire from the hip. Now, add 2 more loadouts. At level 5 or whatever, unlock standard heavy. That gives us the MG34 with a 250 round belt, but we lose the ability to fire from the hip and make bipod setup take a little longer than normal by adding a new animation. Then at level 6 or whatever, we'd unlock Elite Heavy, where it's the same, just the MG42. This means for the Germans, we go from small ammo counts and a focus on mobility to large ammo counts with less mobility as we go up levels. For the US, it would be the opposite. We'd change the US standard issue to work like how the new heavy German MGs work, as in no more hip fire and longer time to set up the bipod, with mobility being the focus of the next unlock, fire support at level 3, which would remain unchanged with the BAR. Maybe you could add a third US unlock at level 6 or something called Veteran, where the US gets the Browning back again, but now they regain the ability to hip fire, but only get a 50 round belt instead of the normal 250. For the Soviets, I think you just add another unlock at level 4, something called Close Support, where they get the PPSH with the drum mag. I know the Soviets already get a lot of these SMGs, but there were dedicated SMG squads in the Soviet army, and I think it's important for there to be more than one loadout for the Soviet MG role. I don't think there really needs to be any changes to the British MG role. I think these changes will make the MG role more interesting while maintaining balance across the board, all while highlighting the differences in doctrine between the different armies. This will also help mitigate the effects of any damage changes I proposed in the last point, as the early German MG loadouts will have limited ammo, especially the MG42. Of all the changes I propose in this video, this is the one I'd be most excited to see. Just to tack on here at the end, consider slightly increasing MG recoil when mounted. Bipods help tremendously, but they don't eliminate recoil. 11, another MG related one here, so I'd like to see some improvements to the bipod function just generally, but more specifically, let us set up on stationary vehicles and destroyed vehicle hulls. And just to tack on here, make it easier to set up MGs in Windows, for fuck's sake. 12. Reduce blood spray and the bullet hit sound. Don't worry, I'm not talking about removing the headshot ding. Right now the game increases blood spray at distance as a visual hit indicator. I think this should be reversed so that close quarters fighting is more gory, and so it's used less as a like a hit indicator and more of an immersion builder / a visually exciting aspect of the game. I think the body shot sound should also be reversed this way. Right now it's also being used as a hit indicator. Now it is true that you can hear bullet impacts in real life, but not clear as day from 300 meters out. At one point in development, these hit indicators were not in the game, and it made firefights more interesting as you weren't quite sure if you made all your shots or not. I know people like their dopamine sounds, but I think the game was better before we had them, and I think it would be even better yet if they were implemented as I proposed, as it would make the game feel more realistic and more visceral. 13. Bullet penetration. This is already in the game to some degree, even though it can be inconsistent. We'll get to that, but first I want to talk about buildable defensive structures. You've likely noticed that barricades and bunkers have 3 different levels. These different levels aren't only supposed to look different, but they are supposed to each handle bullet penetration differently. Black Matter stated in the lead up to update 8 that level 1 was supposed to be easily penetrated, while level 2 less so, and finally level 3 would be impenetrable, more or less. And you can pause to read. For whatever reason, this was never implemented. I'm not sure why, because we never got an official update on the topic, at least that I'm aware of. So let's start there. Let's bring bullet penetration to the buildable defensive structures so there is more benefit to upgrading them, not only all the way to level 3, but also even just to level 2, you know, as it has a benefit over level 1. Perhaps one reason it never happened was because they have the damage values all screwy because they are based on weapon class instead of caliber, but I digress. So just for a quick example, say rifle caliber rounds can penetrate level 1s at 100 meters, intermediate at 50, and pistol caliber simply can't penetrate. Level 2 moves everything down, now pistol and intermediate can't penetrate, while rifle caliber rounds can at 50 meters, then finally level 3 nothing can penetrate. Tank rounds, AT guns, and AT rifles could penetrate level 1s at any distance, level 2s at say 200 or 300 meters, and then can't penetrate level 3s. Satchels would still work the same as they do now, and once that is all working well, I think then we could expand to deal with some of the inconsistencies in other materials. What inconsistencies? Well, it seems that wood is the most consistently performing material, with fencing, fence posts, gates, pallets, wooden stairs, makeshift wood flooring, banisters, the part just below wood windows, and just general wood things all having penetration. But most consistent still isn't perfect. There was plenty of wood I found that didn't have penetration applied to it, like these wood doors, this boarded window, this piece of wood in a trench. My guess is that this latter piece of wood is actually part of the whole trench asset rather than its own single wood post, meaning they couldn't apply penetration to it without applying it to the whole trench, but that's just speculation. Anyway, Black Matter had listed other materials that were supposed to have penetration, like tin and plaster. I couldn't find any tin with penetration, and plaster was very inconsistent. Here we are in a house in Foy, and the bullet will penetrate the wall in one direction, but not the other. Here we are in a house on Utah Beach, and there is no penetration either way. So this leads me to wonder if some of this was implemented on some maps, but maybe not others. And then it makes me wonder again if it was implemented poorly, even on the maps it was implemented on. I don't know for sure, as I only tested a variety of materials on 3 different maps. But getting back to the point here is that I'd like bullet penetration to get a good once or maybe even twice over to iron out some of these inconsistencies and to apply it to the proper materials. One possible issue here is that in order to do this properly, they are going to have to introduce these changes on every map at the same time, or else it could be too inconsistent for players. But maybe this could be mitigated by just doing it in small chunks at a time. First, give us penetration on defensive structures, then when that's all working well, maybe go and start with one material at a time until we get consistent performance across these materials across all maps. 14. Since we brought up defensive structures, more buildable structures. Of course, I'd like to see other structures for the engineer, but I'm talking about bringing back the small sandbags and allowing some roles the ability to build their own personal little sandbag nest. Just one per role and not all roles necessarily. Like, I don't think officers, engineers, or medics should be able to build them, but definitely the riflemen, MG, and support. Maybe automatic riflemen, and to a lesser degree maybe assault, although I do feel assault already gets enough toys. I think this would help with keeping the support role a more sustainable presence in the squad, as well as giving players a little more control over their environment. They'd be small and you'd still be exposed when crouching, so nothing OP, but with some coordination these could be used to decent effect. The sandbags are what I'm most interested in, but something I would like for the engineer is a small scaffold structure that would help us a little with verticality. Right now, players can use trucks to gain this advantage, which is fine, but trucks count against your vehicle limit, and this isn't really their role on the battlefield, right? I mean, it's a truck. Another way players achieve this is by building Belgian gates and climbing them. This also isn't their intended purpose, but more importantly, only the Germans are allowed to build these while the other factions build hedgehogs. A player-built scaffold would simply help even the playing field when it comes to verticality. Each engineer could only build one, with maybe a grand total of 2 per team or something. They should be costly in terms of supplies, so maybe 250 or more supplies apiece. 15. Not only more structures, but improved building mechanics. The biggest culprit here, in my opinion, though, is the barbed wire. I can't see the ends of my barbed wire, and that makes placing it where I want it extremely difficult. I'm always left with little gaps, so I'm frequently having to dismantle it just to move it, and now I've wasted supplies and time. Just a bad situation. We used to have shorter barbed wire in the game. Granted, barbed wire didn't do much back then, but we could easily see where we were placing it. I say make our barbed wire pieces shorter so we can see the ends, or give 2 different barbed wire styles, or let us place it further away from ourselves so we can see the ends, whatever. Just fix barbed wire building and I'd be happy. 16. Sync German sprinting. You'll notice on the left that when sprinting as a German soldier, our weapon is carried across our chest. However, on the right, you'll see that when observing a German soldier sprinting, it's carried with one hand by their side. Now, German soldiers were trained to carry their weapons this way when sprinting for various reasons, so it's definitely a nice detail. It also makes it easier to determine friend from enemy if you don't play with a HUD, but it needs to sync up between the 2 animations. It should have been done when it was introduced, but better late than never. 17. Improve precision strike. This includes making the Stuka more consistent, but what I really want is the precision strike to work more like the satchel. How do I want it to work like the satchel? I want its blast to go through walls so I can call these in on specific enemy occupied structures, and I want them to take out enemy defensive structures like how it says they're supposed to work. Want to make an argument that they shouldn't take out level 3 structures? Okay, I'll hear you out. Think we'd need to increase cooldown or cost for balance? That's a trade I'd be willing to make, but these precision strikes need to be more useful on the battlefield. 18. Back to quality of life. Make it so when I go to the team screen, it's focused on me and or my squad instead of the seemingly random way it works now. That's it. Simple. 19. Make the territory capture sound audible, even if I have my map open. Right now you won't hear the sound until you close your map, and I'd like it changed from this to this. 20. Last but certainly not least, give us more visual effects. Like right here, we have 3 different vehicles explode and they all have the exact same VFX. Even the repair stations and AT guns have the same VFX. Come on, we can do better. And here's a bonus one. Reduce the engine sound volume on Jeeps and Kubelwagens. They are so loud in comparison to the other vehicles that you can no longer hear VoIP when driving them. Balance this volume out for a little quality of life upgrade. Extra bonus, when using the non-verbal marking system, so not the officer marking system, the non-verbal marks for regular infantry, when you request a supply drop via this system, the mark just goes on your head instead of where you click. I think this should be fixed. So there are some changes I think would improve Hell Let Loose. What do you think? You don't have to agree with me, so make sure to put your ideas and tweaks down in the comments. Now on to the giveaway details. I have 4 Oakleaf DLC Steam keys available. Sorry, console players. The DLC includes the Oakleaf pattern field cap and jacket for the Germans. I'll let the giveaway period run 1 week. To enter the giveaway, simply comment on the video and end your comment with the word "fix" like shown in the example here. Winners will be chosen at random. If you are a winner, I will reply to your comment letting you know you won a key. At that time, simply send me an email gebatrongaming@gmail.com. Include your YouTube username and quote your comment like this example here, and we will go from there. Good luck! Okay, make sure to add your feedback and ideas down in the comments, give this video a like, and check the description for other ways to help the channel. I know it was a long one, but thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next one.